Okay guys, so today we are going to cover creation of lines in 3ds Max, and we're going to use the line tool to create a couple of logos. We're going to do one easy logo and one hard logo. So let's just get started with the tool itself. I'm going to go into the top orthographic viewport, and I'm going to go ahead and just maximize that for a second. And I just want to discuss how to create lines in general. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the Create tab, the little thing here that looks like the sun. And then we camped out in the Geometry tab last week, and we're going to just move one step right into the Shapes tab under the Create menu. So we're going to click that, and then the tool we're looking for under the Shapes is the Line tool. So I'm going to click on the Line tool, and you'll notice that this button becomes highlighted in kind of this light baby blue. And that means that tool is active. So just like primitive creation mode, wherever I click out here in the interface, it's just going to keep drawing lines until I either right click to complete that line, but I haven't exited the tool, you'll notice, because it's still highlighted. So if I start clicking again, it's just going to draw another line. If I right click once again, it'll complete that line. And then if I click again, it'll just start drawing a new line. Right click. So in order to exit the tool, I actually have to right click twice. Once to complete the line, and one more time to exit the tool. And now it's not highlighted anymore, and therefore the tool is inactive. All right. So I was just doodling there to show you how that worked. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight those and delete them. And I'm going to enter the tool again. And let's talk a little bit about how the lines are drawn. If I just single click with my left mouse button, it'll draw a line, and it'll draw a nice sharp edge right between the two. I call this a polyline. If you'll hear me refer to this throughout the class. There is no such thing as a polyline, however. I'm making this up. It's kind of a slang term. The reason I call it a polyline is because it's essentially just a vertex with a straight edge drawn between it. But the truth is you can't have a polygon without more than 3 vertices, therefore it's a misnomer. So you hear me say polyline, you might say that to someone else and they'll be like, there's no such thing. They're absolutely right. There is no such thing. This is just what I call this. Okay? So that's my little slang term for it. All right, so far, if I just click and drop, it's going to draw a simple edge with no attenuation between it. Look what happens if I hold down the left mouse button when I click on this next one, and we start to get this kind of nice sloping curve here. And what the line tool is doing is that by holding down the left mouse button while I click and drag, it's actually adding a Bezier handle to that line that I can't see it, so it doesn't show, but it's definitely there because I can add arc to the line and attenuate it and get it to do things that I want it to do. The other thing you can do with this is you can hold down the Shift key, and the Shift key will just draw a line that's completely straight in the direction that you click, and that's kind of nice. If you don't like a line that you've drawn, all you have to do is hit the backspace, and that will undo whatever vertices that you've drawn till this point. So let's say I drew this line and I didn't like anything that I did. I could back out of it all the way until I was basically a kind of an Okay, so again, to undo out of whatever the last line you created, it's the backspace key. To drop a line with attenuation with the Bezier handle, you can just click on left and hold, and you can kind of get the feel for that. And if you don't want any attenuation, you just click and drag and draw a straight old line. If you want to close the line, all you have to do is make the last vertex, click on the open end of the first click. If I do that, it'll pop up a dialog and it'll say spline, close the spline, and then I say yes, because I intended to close it, and that was all there was to it. All right. So now that's the line and its parameters for creation. Now let's actually do something with it. So we're going to go ahead and grab the background images that I had you guys copy off the COM. And the first one we're going to do is the Batman logo. So I'm going to go into the text-based drop-down menus first, and I'm going to go to Views, Viewport Background, which is just a little over halfway down in this drop-down. And then over to the right at the very bottom, Configure Viewport Background. I'm going to click that button, and it's going to open up a dialog box, Viewport Configuration box. And there's some very specific settings that I need to click here in order to get my image to display in the background. and then not be distorted and travel along with the viewport and allow me to trace it nicely. The first one is I'm going to click on this little button here for Use Files. And all that's doing is it's telling the software that I want to associate a image file that it's going to draw in the background. The next one I'm going to click down here is under Aspect Ratio, and I'm going to click on the button that says Match Bitmap. Once I click Match Bitmap, then the Lock Pan Zoom button up here will become ungrayed out, and I can actually click on the Lock Pan and Zoom. So if you're sitting here and you're going, where I know I have to click Lock Pan and Zoom, but it's grayed out, that's because you actually have to click Match Bitmap first, and then it becomes ungrayed out, and then you can click on Lock Pan and Zoom. And we're almost done here. Now we need to tell it where the file is. In this case, I copied it to my desktop. So I'm going to click on the Files button. I'm going to go to the desktop. I'm going to go to New Folder, and that's where I put it, and then Batman logo. I can either double click this right now to open it, or I can just click it and say Open. Either way it works. And then I'm going to say OK. And then there's my Batman logo. You want to do a quick little zoom in and out with the, if you want to do the, you can do that to have fun with it. But you should make sure that your image actually zooms with the orthographic viewport. If it doesn't, you did something wrong, and you should watch that again on freeze frame and do it over again. Okay, now that I got my background image opened and it zooms with the viewport, I'm going to go ahead and hit the G key to hide my grid because it's kind of in the way. And now we can begin tracing this logo. All right. So we're going to do that by going into the Create tab right here, the thing that looks like the sun. And then we're going to walk over one step from the geometry to the shapes. And then we're going to click on the line. And because this logo here is symmetrical, meaning it's the same from left to right, I only have to draw one side of it. So I'm just going to do the left side. And I'm going to go ahead and start here. And we'll click once, click here. This time I'm going to left click and hold down to attenuate that to get that nice little shape there for the ear. And then I'm going to click and hold down and get a little attenuation for this. Notice that my line is starting to diverge from the path here, what I'm trying to trace a little bit. That's okay because I'm intending to come back later and I'm going to modify this line and edit it to get it to line up later. So I'm not so concerned with that right now. So I'm going to drop another line here. I'm going to drop another one here, attenuate that. I'm going to drop one here and attenuate it. I'm going to drop one here, leave that one alone, and then I'm going to drop one here, attenuate it, drop one here, attenuate, and then finally drop one here and attenuate. And I've got it pretty close to the logo, and then I just simply right-click to exit the line creation, which completes the creation of this line. However, notice I'm still in line creation mode, so I have to right-click one more time to exit the line creation. And now I have my line, but it kind of diverges from my shape here a little bit in certain areas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to modify this kind of in post. Whenever you hear someone say, we're going to fix something in post, it means you're going to fix it after the fact. So we're going to fix this in post. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to select the line by marquee dragging around it. That makes it the active selection. If I go over here and I want to edit this line or modify this line, then I'm going to definitely go to the Modifier tab in order to do that. So I'm going to click on the Modifier tab. It's also the little thing here that looks like the noodle. And we can see here that I have my line selected, and that's known because it says line 001. We have a modifier list, and this is basically just a drop-down menu where you can add what are known in Max as modifiers. Modifiers just allow you to modify objects based on a certain pre-programmed set of parameters. So we're not really going to use that just yet. I just want to let you know what that is. And we are going to be jumping back in here to use something from this at the end of this logo creation. So under the modifier list, we have here the Modifier Stack. That's what this is called. Currently, the only item in the stack is the line. And so the line is the parent in the hierarchy. So it's the highest option on the chain. Underneath the line, we have a bunch of sub-objects, or the children of that line. And we can show those sub-objects by clicking on this little plus icon here to the left of the word line. And when I do that, it expands it. And now we can see that we have the line, which is the parent, and now we have sub-objects, which are the children of that line. And of the sub-objects, we have a vertex. So we have a bunch of vertices in here that we can modify. We have segments. We can click on all these segments, show them. And then we have splines. And right now, this is just one big spline. All right. The other thing you may have noticed is that when I click on this in the text-based menu, it also highlights a GUI-based icon down here. And by GUI, I mean a graphical user interface icon. So this is a text-based icon, which represents vertex manipulation. Notice that when I click on segment, it also highlights a GUI-based icon that does basically the same thing. So if I click up here and cycle through, or if I click here and cycle through, I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm just allowing myself access to the sub-object, which in this case is vertex, segment, and spline. All right. So the way we fix our lines is under the vertex sub-object. All right. And what we're going to do is we're going to select these vertices, and we notice here that when I drew this, I put a Bezier handle on this guy. All right. Currently, this Bezier handle is just a little bit wonky for what I want, and I just need to change its type of attenuation. So I'm going to cycle through the 4 different types of attenuation that are available to you under the vertex. So when I highlight any vertex, I'm going to have the following options available. If I right-click on that vertex while I have it highlighted, I have Bezier corner. I have Bezier, which was the one that it was by default. And then I have corner, which is no attenuation, and that's my polyline. So it's just going to draw a line between without any attenuation at that vertex. And then I also have smooth, and smooth is going to kind of just do a pre-programmed smooth between the vertice and the edges that flow into it without any manipulation from you. So it's kind of predetermined. Smooth, in my opinion, is probably the least useful of all of these types of attenuation that are available to you. And the one that we kind of want here is we're going to want to use a Bezier corner. But before I do that, I want to show you the difference between a Bezier and a Bezier corner. So I'm going to select this vertex, I'm going to right-click on it, and I'm going to change it to a Bezier. When I do that, if I hit the W key for move, you can see here that I can move the vertex all as one. Or if I undo that operation, I can select one of these handles, and I can move the handle, and the handle will move and change the shape of the line. Now the thing with the Bezier handle alone is that it will move the attenuation handles basically identically across a certain plane. So it's kind of like this handle is a mirror image of the other handle, and I can't change the attenuation from side to side. It's just going to be a uniform attenuation. This works really well for things that are completely rounded, but not so well for something right here, which is what I'm trying to do, which is something that comes to a point. All right. So you might say, well, you could just do a corner. Well, I could, but the problem with that is that the corner then has no attenuation available. I can only just move that thing around. So in order to get this shape using a bunch of vertices with just corner, I'd have to have a whole bunch more vertices. So right now I'm just trying to do this with like kind of the minimum number of verts. So I'm going to click on this and I'm going to change this to a Bezier corner. And what that's going to allow me to do is change these handles independently of each other. So I can get one shape on this side and I can get another shape on this side. And that also gives me that nice point there that we're looking for that that top of the wing there for the bat logo. So I'm going to pull this up. I'm going to try to get that shape. And I'm just going to work my way around and try to change all these. So I'm going to go down here. This one is a Bezier. I think I can probably, that's a rounded shape, so this is going to work well for that. I just need to maybe change the position of it a little bit and change its attenuation, and I can get that to trace out nicely. This one actually looks pretty good right out of the box, so I'm going to leave that. This one up here definitely needs some work, and because it comes to a point, I'm going to change its attenuation to a Bezier corner. I'm going to select that again, and now I can move it. Now I want to point something out here. Currently, I'm able to move this handle in both X and Y simultaneously. But watch what happens when I move this handle too close to the X constraint and I try to grab it again. Look what happens. It's going to get locked to that X constraint. And the reason for that is because the software has no way of knowing that when I click there that I want the handle and not the X constraint. So it kind of automatically gives priority to the X constraint over the handle. So if I want to grab that handle and make it freeform again, I have to first click on this little box up here to highlight both the X and Y axes simultaneously, and that unlocks it. So now I have the free flow, but look what happens if I try to grab it again, it's just going to default right back to the X constraint, and that's because my handle is right on the X line. So again, every time I try to grab that handle, I'm just going to activate an X constraint. So it kind of sucks, but you have to click on this first, then you can zoom in, and if you zoom in, you can get the handle away from the X axis, and when you do that, you can break that constraint, and you can move that thing free flow again. So it's just a little bit of an annoying thing that you're going to have to be mindful of when you start editing your Bezier handles. If you get one that's too close to either one of these axes, it's going to get locked, and you're going to wonder why, and this is what it is. So again, I'm going to do this with the Y one. If I move this too close, look what happens. I'm going to grab it. Oh crap, I'm constrained. So the way out of that is to just simply free it up by clicking on both axes to highlight the box. You can see now that both axes are highlighted in yellow, and then zoom in enough so that the handle is separated from the axis constraint, and now you can move it again in both axes simultaneously. Alright, now that that's fixed, I'm going to go ahead and do one last one. This one's a Bezier, and I don't see any reason to make that into a Bezier corner. I'm just going to go ahead and leave it a straight Bezier. Even though I'm aware that I'm kind of missing I'm missing a shape here a little bit, that's okay. Maybe I'm changing it, you know. I'm doing my interpretation of the logo. All right, so now our goal for this exercise is to make this logo 3D. And in order to do that, we need to have the other side of it, and then we need to weld the vertices, all right? So I'm going to go ahead and mirror this geometry, and I want to show you something else here. Over in the right, probably up till this point, you guys have just left this modifier dialog kind of straight up and down, and I want to show you there's a whole bunch of tools in here that are kind of buried, and look how I have to scroll through this large list in order to find what I'm looking for. That can get kind of annoying after a while. So I just want to show you a little trick here. If you put your mouse over this window and you wait for the cursor to turn into this kind of right and left arrow, if I left click and drag, I can expand this box and I can see more of the menu items under here without having to constantly scroll up and down in here. So it's kind of nice. So you'll see me as we continue to work. When we get into Edit Poly, I'll have this thing 3 wide because there's so many options that are Edit Poly. I just kind of like to be able to see them all at the same time. All right, so for this one, I'm only going to go 2 wide. And what I'm looking for in here is a tool called Mirror. And I can see it right there, but notice that it's grayed out. So when something's grayed out in Max, that means you can't use it. And that's usually an indication that you're in the wrong mode. So the tool's available to you under one of these sub-objects, right, but not currently Vertex, because I'm under Vertex and I can't mirror, so therefore Vertex must not be what it's looking for in order for me to allow it to mirror. So I'm going to go to the top of the chain. I'm going to try Line and see what happens. So I go to Line, and still Mirror is grayed out. So it's not Mirror, it's not Vertex. I'm just going to keep going. So I'm going to go to Segment. Lo and behold, still grayed out, not accessible. Well, it better be under Spline, or else it's just not available. What do you think it's going to be? It's going to be under Spline. So I'm going to click on Spline, and now suddenly Mirror is available. And the reason I wanted to show it to you that way is because I already knew it was Spline, but from time to time the tools can get very confusing inside the software, and sometimes you're just going to have to poke around and figure them out yourself. And so I'm giving you a method for figuring out kind of what mode to be in to execute any tool that you might want to use. All right, so it's Spline. So I'm going to go ahead and select the spline. This is one spline. And then I'm going to go over here to Mirror, and I'm going to click it. But something weird happened. I clicked on it and it definitely mirrored it across, but I lost my other line. And the reason it did that is because, I'm going to click mirror one more time to mirror it back. I actually have to click on this little button right below mirror for copy. And what that's going to do is it's going to leave my existing spline in place and create a copy and then mirror it across the axis. So I'm going to click mirror one more time, and then now it left my old line behind and it created this new one. So now I'm just going to position this guy into place, and looks good. But I'm not quite done yet, because currently I have two splines. Even though this is the same line, so now this is all the same line, I have two splines. And in order to add dimension to this, to extrude this, the software requires that this spline actually have to be one consistent spline that's closed. So to show you where the problem is it's right down the middle where we had the top and the bottom, where we had two vertices, and these vertices are not combined, so they're not welded. So to combine this all into one spline object, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to go into vertex mode, and I'm actually going to have to what's called weld these vertices together. And all that weld does is it's going to take any number of vertices that you specify by selecting them, and it's going to fuse them together. So weld works based on a threshold, and the default threshold for the weld tool is 0.1. So I want to show you what happens if I just select these two verts and I click weld. Look what happens. Nothing. All right? I can hit that as many times as I want. Nothing's going to happen. And the reason for that is because that threshold, 0.1, is too small. So the 0.1 means that it's going to take any vertices that are within 0.1 distance of each other and weld them together. These two verts are farther apart than 0.1, therefore they're never going to weld together unless I increase the threshold. So because it's only two vertices that I want to weld, I like to go ahead and just hit this thing with a fire hose. So I go in here to the weld setting and I just crank that up to something ridiculous. I don't even care what it says. All I know is it's so high that it's going to weld these two verts if I click on it. So now I'm going to go ahead and click the weld button and look what happens. When the two verts move together and become one like that, then you know that it's complete and you've accomplished your task. Now be careful. When I put that threshold up that high, look what happens if I go ahead and select more than just the two verts that I wanted to weld, and I hit weld, it's going to weld all of those points together. So if you're going to do the fire hose approach, you just want to make sure that you only have the verts selected that you want to select. All right, so there, these two, that's the only ones I want. And I'm going to go ahead and click weld. They move together. It's done. And now, as part of a requirement for me to give depth to this object, I have to have one consistent spline object that's completely enclosed. I have that. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the top of the chain and go up to the line. And now we're ready for that modifier. So I'm going to hit Alt-W to get out of orthographic view. And I'm going to check my line in the perspective view. And we see here we've got our little bat logo. I'm going to hit the G key to get rid of that annoying grid. And I'm also going to hit the J key to get rid of that bounding box. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the modifier list for line 01, which is my bat shape here. And I'm going to scroll down. And what I'm looking for is a modifier under the object space modifiers by the name of Extrude. So I'm going to click on Extrude and look what happens. It fills my shape in now. Suddenly my shape is enclosed, but it doesn't really have a depth, and that's because the Extrude tool or modifier by default has an amount of 0, which is basically no depth. So what I always do is I just type like a 10 in there and hit enter, and then there we go. I've given my bat logo some depth, and we're good to go. So now all that would be left for me to do is to change the color to black. I'm going to say OK. And then I haven't drawn the background for it yet, so why don't I do that? So I'm going to hit Alt-W and maximize the orthographic top viewport. I'm going to go into the Create tab, and I'm going to create another shape. This time, instead of a line, I could sit here and trace this ellipse, but it would, there's really no point to that when the Create tab already has an ellipse tool built in. Now, the way the ellipse works is it's going to start drawing the ellipse based on a bounding box. So if I can imagine a tangent from this edge and a tangent from this edge coming to a corner, if I left click and drag, my ellipse is going to kind of draw in there and pretty much fit that shape as is. And then again, I'm in ellipse creation mode, so in order to get out of it, I'm going to have to right click. And then now I have my ellipse, and I'm just going to hit the R key and uniform scale it down to fit my background border. And I might just kind of position it into shape a little bit in space. And I'm going to call that close enough for government work. So then I'm going to hit Alt W. And then I'm going to go into my perspective view and hit Alt W again to maximize it. And then I want to extrude this object also. So I'm going to go ahead and go into the Modifier tab. And I'm going to go drop down here. And I'm going to select the same object space modifier, which is Extrude. And boom, there it goes. I've extruded my logo. They both have depth. If I wanted to, I could just drop this one down a little bit so I could have the bat logo extruding up out of the background. And that's pretty much it. I'm done. So the cool thing about Max is that it's procedural, and that means that you can then modify the base object, which in this case is the ellipse, and the extrude will maintain up the chain. All right. This is probably a little bit better demo for me to do if I actually select the bat shape here. And so we have an extrude on there. I can hide the extrude by just clicking this little light bulb. That will either hide or show the extrude modifier, the results. Or I can just go down the chain. In this case, I'm going to go down into the line. I'm going to go to the vertex level. I'm going to go to my orthographic viewport so that I can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to select all these verts here. And let's say I'm going to make this guy into kind of a boxer version of, or someone with a no-neck version of the Batman logo. And then I'm going to go ahead and go up to the top of the chain, to the extrude, and look what happens. The shape will maintain and it'll ripple up the chain, maintaining all the history, which is pretty awesome. So the cool thing about Max is that it's called procedural when you have one thing at the base of the chain and it ripples up and all the effects keep. But the cool thing about Max is it actually works. And it's very, very good, very efficient. So I'm just going to undo that last edit because that's not what I wanted. And then I want to show you a couple other things. So currently, look at this logo. So I have it traced out pretty well. I'm reasonably happy with the shape, but I kind of have this faceting here. And so faceting is desirable in gemstones. So if you had like a diamond ring or a ruby or something like that, facets would be something that you were coveted and what you wanted. However, facets in 3D are kind of a no-no, all right? So I want to show you how to deal with these facets and how to basically get some more tessellation or some more geometry on this to smooth this out and get it to look good in the render. Because if I currently render this right now, we can totally see all those facets. And that might be cool for a video game, but if I was modeling this for a client, for television or film, that certainly would not fly. So let's do the ellipse background first. So I'm going to select that object. I'm going to go down the chain, so below the extrude, which is above the ellipse. I'm going to go to the ellipse, and I'm going to click just below this rendering tab. There's one called Interpolation. I'm going to click on the plus there to expand that. And now we have steps. And what that is that's how many steps this line smooths itself out. So currently it's 6, and it's 6 steps between vertices. So the ellipse only had 4 vertices. So that means from this vertex to this vertex, it's going to give me 6 edges. So I want to give it something much higher than that. A safe place for you guys to camp out is somewhere between 32. 32 will give it a nice smooth shape, and 64. All right, 64 would be the film res. 32 would probably be TV res, and then anything lower than that would be a game res. All right, so that fixed the shape on my external, my background, but now I want to fix the shape on my bat. So my bat's still kind of faceted here. So again, I'm going to select the bat. The interpolation always happens at the base, so it's down here at the line level. So I'm going to go into the line. I'm going to, right below rendering, there it is, interpolation. I'm going to click to expand that. And I'm going to change the number of steps to something higher. And I kind of like 32, so I'm going to do 32. And there I go. And suddenly the thing's totally smooth. If I went ahead and rendered that out, we'd have a nice smooth shape. And that's kind of what you're looking for. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and pause that and answer any questions you guys may have. So one of the questions during the break was, is there a way I can get a color picker to change an object's color? And the answer is yes. So all you have to do is select the object. In this case, I have the Batman logo here. And I'm going to click on the little color swatch for that object. And if I click that, I can just select one that's in here, so I can go to pink. I'll change this to a black background now. So we got kind of the girly version. And then now we're going to go ahead and select that bat icon. And let's say I wanted to pick a color that wasn't in their pre-canned little set of whatever this is, like 64 colors. All I have to do is click on this button here, Add Custom Colors. And then if I do that, I can click on the little color picker here. And then I can go anywhere pretty much in this entire interface within Windows, or within the software. It drops off once I hit the Start menu. And I can select any color. So you can just go in here and sample a color from anything. So if you like this little baby blue right there, you can just go ahead and say Add Color. It'll add it to your custom swatches, and you can say OK, and there we go. So pretty cool. All right, now I want to show you guys a few pitfalls that you're going to hit that pretty much almost everyone tends to do this throughout. So some of you may have already had this happen. I'm going to go down into the spline, and I'm going to pop over to my orthographic viewport. And some of you may have seen this where I'm going to just take one of these vertices, and I'm going to move this attenuation handle, and I'm going to make this line self-intersect. So see how the line kind of crosses over itself right there? And when I do that, watch what happens when I go up to the Extrude Modifier. Suddenly, your design is not going to get filled in. It's going to be kind of hollow like this. So if you ever see that, there's two things that can cause this. A self-intersecting line, which is what I just did to make it happen. And the other thing is an unwelded vertice. So if you have a vertex at a segment and it's not welded, so for example, if I didn't weld those top and bottom ones, and I would put an extrude on this, it would come in here and it wouldn't be filled in. So you want to watch that. So again, the way to fix that is by, I'm going to go down into the vertex level. I'm going to pop over here. Oh, wow, okay, check this out. I totally did it. I have a self-intersecting line. Now, if you ever see this and you don't know where the self-intersecting line is, the only thing you can do is just go over these vertices one by one, all the way around. And this is going to become more apparent when we do the MK logo. And you actually just have to go all the way around until you find where the self-intersection is. That's why my recommendation to you guys is to work loose. So what I say is draw your shape out before you start attenuating the lines and fixing everything. Put an extrude modifier and make sure that it fills in. If it fills in, then go ahead and either hide the extrude or delete it. But you should be checking the whole way along so you don't get so far down the chain that you've refined your shape, it's perfect, and then you have this major defeating moment where, oh crap, it doesn't fill in, and then you're so defeated that you got to go all the way back to square one. You think you're going to have to start over. So what I would do is just go ahead and draw the line out, put the extrude on it, make sure it works, and then start refining it afterward. And I'm going to do that here with the MK logo. So that's the self-intersection. The other one is unwelded verts. So if it doesn't fill in, those are the two. The other one that people tend to do quite often is this one, where they'll draw a line, they'll move the line, so I'm going to move the line, and then they'll start drawing on the line again, and what happens when you do that is the new vertices that you draw will get moved down to the ground plane. So I'm just going to move a bunch of these and make them no longer planar, and then I'm going to turn the extrude back on. And see what happens here? This will be the next artifact that you guys will see. It'll be like, why do I have all these crazy artifacts on my object? And the reason for that is because your line is not planar. When your line's not planar, that's when you're going to get these kind of weird display artifacts. And the way you can fix that is I'm going to pop back over to the ortho viewport. Is I'm going to go down to the line, and then I'm going to go to the, I believe it's the segment level, and I'm going to select all the segments. So I just marquee drag around all the segments. And right now, see how they're not planar? They're all on different planes. I'm going to hit the scale key, and then I'm going to scale constrained in Y. So you're going to scale down perpendicular to the plane that you want them to lie flat in. And I'll undo this so you can see it again. So I'm going to select all of these guys. At the segment level, this doesn't work at the vertex level. If I do this at the vertex level, nothing happens. All right, so you got to go to the segment level. Select them all. Hit the R key for scale, and now scale constrained, and look what happens. What I'm doing is, by scaling these down, and if it keeps scaling it until I can no longer see them move again, what it does is the software, you can't scale past 0. So essentially what I've done is I've scaled these all down and crunched them to the same plane, as essentially making them coplanar. Once I've done that, I can click off this again, go back to my extrude, and there we go. Back again, artifacts healed, and we're back in business. All right. The other thing that people also do, I've seen a few people do, is, we'll just reiterate, is the X key. You hit the X key and your manipulator goes away. So watch that one. The other one that is cropping its head up by about this time is people hit the space bar. And notice what happens here. The space bar actually locks your 3ds Max, and it makes it so you can't really do anything but view or orbit around your object. You can't modify anything.
So it's only good for displaying here.
Yeah, I think that's why it's there, for like if you're showing a client your work or your boss or someone who kind of doesn't know what they're doing and you want to keep them from messing up your file.
Here.
Yeah, here, and then you toggle that and lock it up on them. So, but you got to watch that because it's super easy to do. You hit the space bar, and all of a sudden you're like, why can't I do anything? Check that first. Make sure that that lock isn't on. All right. So that's how you can go wrong. Now let's go ahead and do a complex object where you're certainly going to run into everything I just showed you. So I'm going to go into the start menu here, and I'm going to reset my scene.
Wait, I had a question.
Yeah.
Say you wanted to insert. Would you? Oh, my bad.
Say you want to what?
Like make it so, like when we messed it up, how it like insets it into the object. Would you change the segment below 0 or give it a value?
So you wanted to inset the bat into
Yes.
the other thing? That would be hard. You want to cave it in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I'm going to show you're going to know how to do that after this exercise. Okay. So let's go. Let's do the MK logo. So we're going to go to, this time, just to show you that you can do the viewport background in any viewport, I'm going to do it from the front ortho this time. So I'm going to go into my front orthographic viewport, and I'm going to maximize it. And then I'm going to go into Views, Viewport Background, Configure Viewport Background. Or you can also use the shortcut key for this, which is Alt-B. All right, does the same thing. So this time I'm going to go Advanced. I'm going to just hit Alt-B. That's going to open up my Viewport Background dialog. And then again, as you guys know, we're going to go to Use Files. We're going to click on Match Bitmap. And then when I do that, the lock pan zoom is going to become unlocked. I'm going to click on the lock pan and zoom. And then I'm going to click on Files because I need to tell it what image I'm going to use. In my case, I'm going to go to the desktop, and I'm going to go to my new folder. And this time I want the MK logo. And I'm just going to double click that to associate that, and then I'm going to say OK. To test it, I'm going to zoom in and out and make sure that it zooms with my viewport. I'm golden. So now we're going to go ahead and create this thing. So we can see here that this gets a lot more complicated. And now I kind of want to discuss with you guys something that's just kind of a 3D modeling principle that's probably going to hang with you from this class through your entire career. And that's the number of edges that you need in order to define something. All right. So let's talk a little bit about that before we actually start building this logo. So in the previous logo, I kind of used the minimal number of points in order to draw that shape. But what that did was that left me with a hard edge. All right, so I want to show you something. I'm going to create some standard primitives here. I'm just going to do a box. And then I'm going to duplicate this box. I'm just going to put it right side by side. So I have this box. If I hide that bounding box and I hit wireframe on shaded, you can see here that I have just a single edge. All right. I want to explain to you that this edge is a hard edge. All right. This edge does not exist in life. All right. So imagine if this edge were like the edge of a sword blade. It would be so sharp it would cut through anything because it comes down to an infinitesimal point. This something this small does not exist. So hard edges like this in real life are non-existent. What you have is you have things that look like they're hard, but they're actually rounded. So if you put a razor blade or a samurai blade under a microscope, eventually you get down to a point and you would actually see that it was rounded. It had nicks. It had all sorts of imperfections in it that you can't see when you just look at it with the naked eye. It looks normal. All right, so when it comes to 3D, the computer uses edges to render things. And you guys all know what a highlight is? So like in life drawing, when you're drawing a character or something, and the character doesn't come to life until you put that highlight on the eye. The same thing is true for 3D objects, all right? And an object that only has a single edge here can't carry a highlight on that edge because there's nothing for it to have a highlight to. It's either this face, which would receive a highlight, or this face, right? Now I'm going to show you what happens when I select this object and I'm going to convert it to an editable poly. And then I'm going to go into edge mode. And I'm going to chamfer this, which is just going to add some extra edges to it. So I'm going to go to chamfer. And I'm going to exaggerate it a little bit. So I'm going to make it kind of wide. I'll do like a 0.5. And then I want to increase the number of edges to the minimum number of edges, which is 3. 1, 2, 3. So if you have any object with a hard edge, for it to capture a highlight in a rendering engine, it's got to have 3 edges, all right? Because the highlights are drawn on the polygons themselves. So these 2 edges basically equal the renderer will now be able to throw a highlight on that edge, and it's going to kind of separate the men from the boys in terms of reality and photoreality. So I'm going to click on render and see what happens. See the difference? That edge is completely hard, and this one has that nice rounded tone. Now, it doesn't mean that I can't make this as hard as this one. I can, just by moving them closer together. But what it's going to do is when you render this, it's going to actually capture a highlight, and this box is going to look more real than this box. This box will always look phony on the frame, and this one will always look better. All right? And I'll illustrate that later. That's like kind of my mantra. And you'll see that over and over again. But I wanted to show you that because now what I want to do is when I draw and trace this object, whenever we have a point here, like the tip of this tongue, I want to draw 3 vertices because that hard edge doesn't exist. And if I do that hard edge, if I were going to render this for film and that thing came flying across the screen and 20 feet tall by 40 feet wide, you would kind of notice that it was phony and it didn't quite look right. It wouldn't have a highlight on it. And it would also probably create an artifact where as it flew past you, you'd kind of see it skip along the frame. And that's because it doesn't have the 3 edges and it's not getting the highlight. All right. So let's do this again. And I'm going to just go ahead and first I'm going to create the outline shape. I'm going to do that by using create. I'm going to go to shapes. This time I'm going to do a circle. Circles draw out from the center, so I'm going to go ahead and just scale it up. I'm going to hit the W key for move. I'm going to move it into position. And all I'm doing is building the border for this thing, for the MK logo. And then I'm going to scale it up a little bit. That looks pretty good. And then I want to create this interior border here. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key to create a copy. And I'm going to do that. And when it comes up, I'm going to say create copy object. And then I'm going to select both of these guys and move them off to the side. And just leave them there for now. We'll come back to those. So just you have an exterior circle and an interior circle. And at this point, we could just go ahead and fix the interpolation, right? Because we know that we want to go to 32. So I'm going to select those both and go to 32. If I was smart, I would have set this one to 32 before I copied it, so that I only had to do that once. All right, so now we're ready to start tracing this guy out. And remember what I said about working low to high? So I'm going to go low detail to high. And so I'm going to draw this thing out, and I'm going to draw it pretty rough to start with. And I just want to check to make sure everything's cool and it extrudes correctly before I start refining it. So I'm going to go ahead and start now. I'm going to go into the Create tab. I'm going to go to Line, and I'm going to start. I'm going to start over here, and we're going to go 1. This one I'm going to attenuate a little. I'm going to drop 1 here. So the rule of thumb for dropping, knowing how many vertices to drop, is you kind of need 3 vertices for every 90 to say 180 degrees of arc. So this one is 180. I can actually get away with 2. So I'm going to drop edges there. Someone had a question, so I'm going to pause for false alarm. All right, so I'm going to keep drawing here. I have a 90 degrees of arc in here, so I'm going to drop 1, 2, 3. This one, whoops, attenuate. I've got a point here, so I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. Got a slight dip there, so I'm going to go 1, 2. Then I got this one, so I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. This one here, that's 90 degrees, so I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. This one, 90 degrees at the tip, so I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. When it gets into the tight spaces, I don't even try to attenuate it at all. I just go ahead and drop it as a regular old corner vertex. This is kind of a complex shape, so I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. There's just a slight divot there. And then this one comes up to a corner, and that's kind of a hard corner, so I'm going to put 3 in there. This is a tip, so I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to go 1. To move, you guys love it, and you don't even know how painful this used to be in Max. It used to be that if you tried to pan the view while you were creating a line, it would make you create that line, it would stop, and you'd have to start a new line and then attach them all. They finally fixed it, so now all you have to do is hold down your middle mouse and you can pan and keep going with your existing line. This is a little interior corner, so I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. And I'm just going to speed it up because I want to rip through this. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And that time I tried to do 1, 2, 3, but I didn't zoom in enough, so I'm going to backspace out on 1, 2, 3 in there. Tip, so I'm going to do 1, 2, 3. Remember, you guys might be wondering why I'm showing you how to do film grade modeling when this is GA 2211, or what is it? No, this one's No, this one's MA 1134. So I'd be right on the money because it's not game art. But in my other class, it's GA, and they're like, why are we learning film res? Because games are going film res, trust me. I'm training you for the next 10 years of your career. Future. Okay, and I quit talking because now I'm just doing it. Okay, and I'm almost done, so I'm going to drop one here. And then here, because we have this border, I can just go ahead and draw this last bit a little bit just so it goes all the way down into the border. And then finally, I'm going to click on my last one right over where I began, and the dialog box is going to pull up and it's going to say close spline, and I'm going to say yes. Okay, so I've drawn the pretty complicated outline here of the MK logo. And then now, because I'm working very loose and I want to make sure that I haven't made any mistakes before I've got too much time into this, I'm going to go ahead and add my extrude modifier and just make sure that this thing will fill in and I don't have any self-intersecting lines, I don't have any non-planar verts, that kind of thing. So I'm going to select this line, I'm going to go into the modifier stack, and I'm going to go under the modifier list, and I'm going to go ahead and apply an extrude. And I'm on the money because I just did it and I have no issues. So again, I did that before I got totally invested in this, and it was, to the point of no return. And so now I know that I'm clear to keep going. So I'm just going to add like a 10 to that extrude, give it a little bit more depth. And then now I still need to add the interior shapes. So I go back to my logo here. We have this interior eye, nose, kind of like where the tongue's coming out of the mouth, and then this section of the mouth. So that still needs to be achieved. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn, rather than delete this extrude modifier, which I could do, I'm going to leave it in there and I'm just going to hide it. So by turning that little light bulb off, it just doesn't display anymore, but it's still there. So it allows me to quickly check it without having to redo it all the time. All right, so now I'm going to go back into my front ortho, and I'm going to fire up my line creation tool again. So I'm going to go into create, line, and now I'm going to draw all these interior shapes. So I'm going to go with the eye. So 1, 2, 3 at the corner. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to close that one. So I'm going to say yes. Now I'm going to do the nose, the nostril here. So I'm going to say 1, 2, 3. And then 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to close it. And then we got this little guy, which is basically a circle. So I can really just get away with 4 verts here. And I lied. I did fine. And then we're going to go ahead and do this one. So we got 1, 2, 3 at the corner. I don't like what I just did there. I definitely screwed up. So I'm going to go and I'm going to close this one. All right, so again, I worked really low. And just to confirm that when I do turn on the extrude on this object, first I'm going to get out of line creation mode, and I'm going to do that by right-clicking twice. But just to make sure that my extrude still works, I'm going to go over here to the Modifier Stack. So I'm going to select my drag and outline, go into the Modifier Stack, turn on the light bulb, confirm, still works, nothing changed. All right. Now what I want to do is I want to create these cutouts. And the way I'm going to do that is by going down into the line modifier and the hierarchy. And I'm going to use the attach. So under geometry, under line, so top of the chain, geometry, I want to use the attach feature. I'm going to click on attach. Watch what happens to this cursor when it goes over a line that's compatible. It lights up with these kind of like 3 little circles here. And that means that this is an attachable line. So I'm going to click on the eye. I'm still in attach mode, so I can keep clicking on shapes. Nostril, still in attach mode, so I can keep clicking on shapes. The little mouth cutout, and then the big mouth cutout. Okay, now I'm done attaching my interior shapes, and I want to get out of attach mode, so I'm going to right-click to get out of attach mode. First thing I'm going to do is I want to make sure I didn't screw this up, is I'm going to turn on my extrude icon and go up to the top of the chain, and it's a beautiful thing. I didn't mess it up. All right, so it's still good. And now at this point, I want to finish this logo off because I want to, again, I'm working low to high, so I'm going to finish the logo off completely in a low state before I'm too invested in it. All right, so now I'm going to grab the background border here and this one, and I need a background for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select one of these circles, and I'm going to hit the R key, and then I'm going to hold the Shift button, and I'm going to uniform scale this. And I'm just going to make a duplicate that's kind of in between what's going to become my border. And then I'm going to go ahead and add that extrude modifier to it. Just on the one I just made, yeah. This one I just want to be flat, so I'm going to give it a 0. I'm going to change its color. I like red, so I'm going to do red. And then I just want to hide this for a second. So I'm going to right-click on it, and I'm going to say hide selection, and it's just going to hide the object temporarily. And now I want to grab this exterior border frame, and I want to attach this interior one. So before I can attach the interior one, I have to convert this. Currently it's a circle, so I want to right-click on it, and I'm going to convert it to an editable spline. And when I do that, the reason I did that is because if I look at the circle here, and I'm under the modifier list for the circle, do you see a button under here for attach? There isn't one. So in order to be able to attach another line to it, I have to convert it first to an editable spline. When I do that, look what shows up, the attach button. All right, so now that I have my attach button, I can click on it, see what lights up when I get on that interior circle. I'm going to click that again. I'm still in attach mode, so I want to right-click to exit attach mode. But now I have this exterior border and the interior border all as one shape. And what's going to happen when I extrude it is it's just going to have a hole in it. So it's going to kind of be like a tube primitive. So I'm going to go down into the modifier list. I'm looking for extrude. I'm going to do it. I'm going to give it like a 10. And then this one I'm going to change the color to black or something. And I'm going to change my dragon to black as well. And then now I'm going to right-click into the interface. You can right-click anywhere in the interface right now. And I'm going to say unhide all. And there we go. I got my interior shape. I got my exterior border. And all I need to do is move those over into position. I'm going to go into my ortho viewport just to make sure that I'm lining these up pretty good. And so there we go. That's lined up with the logo. At this point, I'm going to check it. It's not done. It's still got a bunch of artifacts and doesn't look that clean. But again, I don't care. I'm not invested. I haven't spent that much time on it. So if there is a problem, and I couldn't figure it out right away, I might just throw it away and start over, right? But if I had gone and tweaked all these vertices and did all their attenuation and something was screwed up, I'd be really bummed because I spent, the last 12 hours on it and now I potentially have to throw it away. All right. So be smart. Always work loose. Check your work along the way. When it looks good loose, it's going to look awesome when you refine it. So now that it's good loose, I just want to extrude this a little bit more. So I'm going to make this like a 15. And so now my dragon kind of insets into the border, and something happened. I just fat fingered it, I think. Let's do a 20. So I'm going to inset my dragon so it falls right into the border. And that's actually looking pretty good, as is. If I wanted to not be sorrowful for my own existence and how ridiculously, what's the word I'm looking for? Incompetent that I was being, I'd go ahead and save my work right now. So I go to File, Save As, and I'm going to go ahead and save this to the desktop. New folder. I'm going to call it JHT MK temp. Sometimes you can do rough. You're working rough. Save. All right, now I got this thing saved. What am I going to do? Save as. Hit that plus key. I want 2 of them, just in case something goes wrong, right? So now I'm going to start working on the second copy. I got the other copy that's untouched. And now I want to go ahead and start refining all my shapes. So the beauty of Max, once again, all I have to do is hide the extrude, go into the orthographic front viewport, go down to the vertex level, and I'm just going to start here and start working my way around and just working out all the attenuations of all these curves. So this one has no attenuation. I want to definitely change that to Bezier. And I'm really just going through and I'm softening and fixing all my curves to get it to look pro. And at this point, I could even show it to my art director, or my client and say, is this what you had in mind? And again, they're looking at it. They don't know it's rough. You're going to tell them it's rough. They probably won't even know. It looks done to me. No, trust me, it's rough. I'm that good, right? And then you come back, and then what are you doing there? You're showing your value. All right, so I'm going to change the attenuation on this one to Bezier. Look what I'm doing right here. I'm locked off. This is BS. Again, I got to unlock it. There we go. And then just so the viewers at home don't have to watch me fix every single one of these, I'm going to pause and come back at the end, unless I run into problems, in which case I'll show you. Okay, so as I was cleaning up my shape here, I'm glad this happened. I got to a position where I started editing the splines, and I realized I kind of missed a vertex here that I wish I had put in. So you guys are going to want to know how to do this. If you want to add a vertex, you're going to be in vertex mode, and you're going to say insert. You click, the little icon lights up to show you it's going to insert a vertex. It's going to move the vertex wherever you move the cursor. And then it's going to keep you in vertex insert mode. So the way out of it is to just right click and then right click again. And there we go, I've added that extra vertex that I wanted. And it helps me refine my shape. And so I can just keep going, add the Bezier attenuation to this one.
All these changes you made will affect the...
They'll all ripple up the chain, yep.
If you need to.
So the question was, you can add them, but can you delete them? And the answer is yes. You just select it and hit the delete key, and that's it.
still
Let's
must be
see.
doing something wrong because that capture will work.
Okay, so I've almost cleaned up this entire thing. Kind of ran out of time as I was running around helping people. But I cleaned it up from about here to about here, and so we're going to call that pretty much finished. That's the process, though, guys. You can build any logo in the world like that using all these methods. So the homework assignment is to create one simple logo similar to the Batman logo we did, and then one harder logo similar to the Mortal Kombat logo. You can also go a lot harder. People do some pretty cool stuff with this exercise. So I say if you're so inclined to do something pretty complicated, knock yourself out. All right. Good luck to everyone, and we will see you next week.